Hey everyone, welcome to episode 180 of Shunya One. We seem to be hitting those numbers every week, and I can't believe we are almost nearing 200 at this point. But even today, on our 180th episode, it's actually a very interesting conversation that we are having with the founder and CEO of a company called HungerBox. And true to its name, I think the conversation was really interesting. There's so much to consume. There's so much to take in, especially listening to Sandipan Mitra, who's here with us today, and who personally is a veteran in the food tech space as we know it. And it was really insightful to hear some of the early journey, some of the initial startups that he was involved in, and probably all of the names which you've heard before, and probably even used yourselves if you've been in the digital ecosystem in India all the way back from 2006. So very interesting chat. Please stay tuned, check it out, and leave us some feedback once you listen to this episode. We'll take a quick break and come back and
Hello. It's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On This Round is on me, food writer Sonal Ved shares valuable advice for budding food writers with Gauri. On Naan Curry, Sadaf and Archit do a rundown of India's most popular biscuit, Parle Chi. On Misconduct, Ragvi and Nisha introduce us to Kamlavali Arumagam, the woman responsible for the Pazi fraud. On The Longest Constitution, Priya explores the journey of free speech in India. And on Audio Gyan, Kedar talks about game design with the director of design at Zynga, Purnima Sitaraman. We've got some exciting news for you. IVM Podcast has launched merchandise and our first line is out now. Head to the IVM Podcast website and click on the shop tab and check out the first collection of t-shirts. Do follow us on social media as well. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Also, don't forget to rate us on any of the platforms you're listening to us on, whether it's Spotify, whether it's Apple, wherever you do that, that is really helpful for us. And do remember, you can also check a lot of our shows out on YouTube. If you go to ivmpodcast.com/YouTube, you get a list of all of our channels. We're also doing a small listener survey, so please do help us out with that. If you go to ivmpodcast.com/survey, it'll help us understand a little bit more about our listeners. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, SBI Life Insurance, Jupiter, a digital banking app, and Capgemini. Get the future you want. Thank you so much. Without you guys, this wouldn't be possible.
Hi Sandipan, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Hi. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on the show.
No,
Pleasure
it's
being here.
great to speak to you, and of course, obviously today we're going to talk about HungerBox, and the I would say the very unique platform that you've built there. But before we jump into that story, I think I'm very interested to know from a, if I may say so, veteran food tech person like yourself, a little bit of your own backstory. I mean, you've actually been involved in not just food tech but the overall Indian startup ecosystem for a very long time, from probably its first phase, if you can say that. So
True.
why don't you go ahead and give us a little insight into that backstory?
True. No, so our journey started in 2006, where we founded Southeast Asia's first food tech company. Right? I'm sure
Wow.
not many people know about it. Right? It was called Hungry Bangalore. So
Yes.
we started in 2006, and that was a time there were no apps and there were no smartphones. Right? So it was all on the web. So
Yeah,
hence
it's
it was
over
called
15
Hungry.
years ago. it's
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
crazy to think
Yeah.
how in internet terms it's 15 years is a lifetime.
True. And the story is that the first time we were interviewed, we were asked what kind of company is this, and that was the first time the word food tech was used. Right?
Wow.
So it was used for the first time to define our company way back in 2006. Right?
Interesting.
We built the first B2C online food ordering platform, right? And this is all pre apps. So it was a very slow growth since 2006. People would go to the website
Right.
and order food, and the restaurant would come and deliver the food to you. So this went on, and then we partnered with the Just Eat Group, which was then the world's largest online food ordering company in
Right.
2011, and the company got renamed to Just Eat.in, right? And we ran it since 2011. 2014 was a very pivotal year for the entire industry, okay, with the
Right.
advent of smartphones, of affordable internet, and people wanting to do everything, on an app.
Right.
So 2014 was that year which we started as a .com company, but ended being an app first company, right?
Okay.
So more than 50% of the orders in that one year shifted from .com to apps, right? And then 2016 onwards, the 2015 the company did very well, and then we got an acquisition offer from Food Panda, which the board accepted, and the company was eventually acquired by Food Panda. Right, so that brought an end to our first 9 year stint. Right, so
Right.
we are one of those very lucky food tech companies to have seen the entire journey of building the company to it being acquired.
Yeah.
Right, but so we were happy and proud of that. But what we missed was creating a legacy, right? The company was acquired, and then the name went missing. And today, if you
Right.
ask any of your viewers what's online food ordering, they'll say it's Swiggy or a Zomato, right? Nobody
Right.
remembers who started
Right.
this business in India, right? So we lost the legacy, and that's something that hurt the entire team, right? And then we said that we have to build another company, and this time that company should leave a legacy, right, in its
Mm.
field, right? Like for example, we use the word Xerox instead of
Yeah.
photocopy, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So the entire industry is known by that one company, and things like that. So we want to build something of that stature, right? And once the company was acquired, and once we did a handover in 2016, we started HungerBox with the idea that we see everything getting digitized around us, right?
Hmm.
I have been that fortunate generation where we used to have to stand in a queue to buy a movie ticket, right, before Book My
Yes.
Show happened, right?
Yes.
Or go stand and get an agent to go buy a bus ticket, right? Before all
Yes.
these apps and all that happened, right? So we saw everything getting digitized around us, and that's been the trend over the last decade. But what was startling to me was the fact that office food, right, which is one of the most consumed items, right? So I'm an ex Wipro. I was a software engineer at Wipro for a couple of
Hmm.
years. I worked in Yahoo for a couple of years. In both places, I used the cafeteria, right? And
Hmm.
working as a techie in these companies, and then going standing in a queue for my food, not once, not twice, but 2.2 times in a day, right?
Yeah.
Got me thinking that this needs digitization, right? The convenience that all other digitizations have brought about in our lives. Cafeteria food also needs to be digitized and made more convenient and easy for all
Yeah.
employees consuming food in cafeterias. Right. So with that basic idea, we jumped in 2016, starting our company. Right. And we started in Feb. Only in September did we get our first client. Right.
Hmm.
And since then, absolutely stellar journey. So from there, we grew quite rapidly. Just
Right.
before the pandemic, we were clocking about 6.5 lakh daily transactions, right?
Wow.
Managing about
Yeah.
650 cafeterias across the country, right? They're doing a GFE, a gross food value of over 50 crore a month, right?
Wow.
So these were things that we were able to achieve. And then obviously the pandemic was pretty hard on us,
Sure.
right? But then
But
so
then offices
that's a
are
quick
back. So, yeah.
yes, yes, yes.
So
And they're
before
back
I,
with a bang. Yeah.
yeah, But before I delve a little bit more into a current state of the product and everything, uh, just a few points that you mentioned earlier, right? I mean, obviously, you're someone who's seen these waves a little before maybe they were mainstream, right? Especially with Just Eat or Hungry Bangalore, in fact. Uh, there was always this core value proposition you were bringing, saying this is getting digitized, and your users yearn for this in the previous journey. uh, while you existed, sorry, while you existed, the rest of the other food tech apps, right? They sort of came in and they changed the, let's say, topography of of delivery and ordering as we know it, right? What have there been any early insights, or rather mistakes or misses, that you had over there which you did not build, that you are already very cognizant of as you started this next chapter? I mean, lessons, if I may ask you, of the first chapter that you had.
No, so every company goes through a series of mistakes it makes, right? That's what makes a company. That's what
Yeah.
makes the industry, right? So you have to have your series of mistakes. You would be lucky if you commit them early in the
Yeah.
journey of the company, so that you can make quick corrections. Like we did even in HungerBox, right? We made certain mistakes, but we made it early, so we were able to take course correction easier. Right? The bigger you get, the more difficult it gets to make course correction. But looking back, Hungry Bangalore, when we started, was a company ahead of its time, right?
Right.
And if you are a company that has started ahead of its time, you have to be patient and wait for the market to come and acknowledge your company and absorb what you are trying to build. Right? The ecosystem was not ready when we started. Right? We were just too early for the time, and hence we had to be more patient. Uh, and as I mentioned, the first 8 years, it was a tough journey. But just when things started looking up, and the industry just kind of came to its own, 2014 onwards, that's when the company got acquired, right? So
Right.
so yes, for us it was like, if we had to hang on and do this longer, we would have been a much bigger company, right? We wouldn't have, the $1 million valuations became $1 billion valuations,
Correct.
in that phase, and we missed that, right? So I think timing plays a very critical factor. Whereas in HungerBox, the timing was just perfect. Right? In 2016, when we started HungerBox, we could just leverage technology that existed. Right?
Right.
People were comfortable using apps and digital payments and things like that. So we didn't have to wait for the industry to catch up, right? The industry was ready for the disruption, right? So in terms of timing, we got this one absolutely spot on, right?
Right.
Any earlier would have been an issue. Any later also would have been an issue.
Right. No, that's very interesting. And timing, of course, timing, size of market, all of these things which uh, pretty much determine your success or failure. But it's commendable that, in spite of that, at least in your first phase, you held on. Like, patience is one thing. I think the fact that you didn't give up itself is also another factor that you know uh, contributed to your success. Coming to HungerBox, you obviously, this is a little bit of a change from a, let's say, a B2C to a B2B sort of offering. While I know there is a consumer facing app and there's obviously value for the consumer, uh, what was your, let's say, was there any conviction behind choosing to go that route and solving for businesses versus trying your hand at anything else directly consumer facing again?
No, so as I mentioned, for me the biggest motivation was the fact that working at Wipro, me and my friends would, during lunch, go from our ODC to the cafeteria, stand in a
Right.
queue, and then get to the counter, pay by cash, and then stand next to the counter waiting for food to come, And if there is a masala dosa, you would have like a fight with four masala dosas having come out and
Sure.
everyone jumping and trying to get one, right? And we would do this not once, twice, but 2.2, 2.5 is the average number of interactions a user has with his
Yeah.
cafeteria, right? It's the
Yeah.
most frequently used thing, that one does on a daily basis, right? So for us, what baffled me was that how is this not
Enabled with tech.
digitized, yeah,
Yeah.
to make things convenient, transparent, make things more accountable for all stakeholders, right? Not just for the end user, even for the food
Yeah.
partners, even for the administrative staff who is overseeing the cafeteria operations, even for the staff working there, right?
Right.
Things could be made much better if we have a digital layer on top of this, right? And that was the motivation to start, and then obviously we entered B2B, and 6 years now doing B2B, and having done B2C for 9 years, right?
Yeah.
It's 10 times easier running a B2C company than a B2B company,
Oh, your
right?
B2C is easier.
Yeah, B2C is, as running it on a day-to-day basis. It's far easier than running B2B.
Of
Right?
course. Of course.
B2B,
Expectations
any
are different.
client, yeah, the client sneezes and you have to be there.
Yeah.
So in B2C, it's much, operationally much easier to run the show.
Correct. Correct.
But then I love the food space, right?
Right.
I love feeding people. I love the joy it brings in. It's all to do with things from the heart, right? Food,
Right.
and we
Right.
love this space. We have been in it, and I want to kind of do the next 15 years doing food, right? It's a
No.
very 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 special industry, you know, very challenging, yet very 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 satisfying if you get it right, right? So love the industry, so our conviction around it does not change, if the macro scenarios around us keep changing, favorably, non-favorably, but
Right.
your conviction around what you're doing and the fact that there is a value creation that you are doing, uh, if that is there, then you are able to navigate through such times.
No, absolutely, and I don't think what you're building today is definitely not only needed from a consumer point of view, but I think it was one of those aspects, like you clearly said, which was just not solved for with tech, and it pretty much covers the 360-degree interaction with food now with HungerBox, and then the rest of the things in the ecosystem available to us as consumers. I don't think there's any food which you buy or eat or interact with vendors on which is non-digital anymore. So
True, true.
definitely was a gap in the market.
And
Before
I'll,
we get
I'll
into,
just
yeah.
add I'll just add one
Yeah.
more interesting thing. Once we built this and we went to investors and they asked that
Right.
which company are you trying to ape here, and we said
Yes.
that no, we are not. This is a solution built by us. The only people we talked to were the stakeholders, right? And we have built this. We have not aped any other company, right? And that was something that people did not take so well, right?
Yeah.
That how is it that there is an Indian company which is claiming to do something unique, right? No offense to a lot of unicorns in our country, right? But they have grown out of aping something
Yeah.
outside, right? But
Yeah.
what we take pride at HungerBox is the fact that whatever we have built is absolutely unique, right? and
Right.
and we had a proper research done all over the world to find out if there is another digital cafeteria application in the world, and there is none, right?
Wow.
So what we have done is not just unique in India but unique in the world, right? So that's
Amazing.
something that we take absolute pride in, right? That there is serious innovation done in the food tech space and led by India for once, right? Not
That,
something that has been brought in, but led here.
no, that's amazing, and the fact that it could be done with at the right time with the right addressable market shows. I mean, I think you just Clearly, someone like you or someone who's been there, done that in the first wave, probably was able to see this gap. Sandipan, before we break down the product a little more and get into, let's say, the nitty gritties of the business, I'd love to take a quick break and come back and talk to you again.
Hello, hello, hello. It's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Think Fast, Varun and Suchita discussed the Twitter sting operation and Jack Ma pulling out of Paytm. On Capgemini's Techipedia series, Shiladitya speaks to Anand Chandramouli and Deepak Solanki about sustainable harvesting practices through digital farming. On the Wire Talks, Siddharth talks to author and translator Navdeep Suri about the partition and the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. On Marathi Khidkitun, the Deshmukhs explore how animals and birds gauge their sense of distance in the environment. And on Big Talk about tiny humans, Devi Shobha and Meghna explain the right way to talk to children about sex and sexuality. We've got some exciting news for you. IVM Podcast has launched merchandise and our first line is out now. Head to the IVM Podcast website and click on the Shop tab and check out the first collection of t-shirts. Do follow us on social media as well. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Also, don't forget to rate us on any of the platforms you're listening to us on, whether it's Spotify, whether it's Apple, wherever you do that, that is really helpful for us. And do remember, you can also check a lot of our shows out on YouTube. If you go to ivmpodcast.com/YouTube, you get a list of all of our channels. We're also doing a small listener survey, so please do help us out with that. If you go to ivmpodcast.com/survey, it'll help us understand a little bit more about our listeners. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, SBI Life Insurance, Jupiter, a digital banking app, and Capgemini. Get the future you want. Thank you so much. Without you guys, this wouldn't be possible.
Hey everyone, in conversation with Sandipan, talking to us about HungerBox and of course all the things that led to the company being formed. But I'd love to also now understand a little bit more about the actual product and the let's say the infrastructure that you're really providing. Now, when you went to cafeterias first or these sort of large office cafeterias and where there's a captive audience of consumers, then there is the actual cafeteria food vendors, or let's say the or whoever is the catering company, right? What did they how let's say how open were they to actually using tech? uh, because again, this is B2B tech. You had to solve for the cafeteria side first and then probably make the consumer app. So how easy or hard was it to convince them? You said it took you 6 months or so to get your first customer. What were those early conversations like, and how did that form or your opinion on what exactly to build?
No, so absolutely, the industry is extremely fragmented, right? It's
Yeah.
one of those industries where more than 90% of the industry is run by very local players, right? But in my experience of working with food entrepreneurs in our country and looking at food entrepreneurs world over, right? One realization was that you don't need to build another kitchen in India, right? So
Hmm.
there are a lot of amazing food entrepreneurs, making great food. All we need is a platform that helps them sell their food well. Right? So
Hmm.
once we went in, met every stakeholder, and the best part was that September when we went live with our first cafeteria, that was the first time we ran a cafeteria. Right before this,
Hmm.
nobody in the founding team had ever run a cafeteria. So that helped us look at everything with a fresh pair of eyes
Right.
and question everything that ye kyun hota hai, right? If you're
Hmm.
from the industry, you kind of tend to lose that ability
Yeah.
to question why is it done that
Yeah.
way. Right? So once we entered, we realized we don't need to build a new kitchen. It's all there. All we need to do is four things, right? Put a technology layer and build deep tech, right? Not just a ordering layer, right? But deep tech which every stakeholder is using today. The
Hmm.
second was food safety and compliances, right? That's where Indian kitchens and Indian food entrepreneurs lack. So if we
Right.
are able to bring that standard up to international standards, that's something that will be a real value add to the industry.
Right.
Right. Third was on food operations. Right? How do I streamline processes? build SLAs, SOPs that are followed in a stringent manner, right? So that we are able to delight users not once, not twice, but consistently over a period of time. Right? And fourth was, get the right curation, right? An admin of a company has that much knowledge of number of, food vendors they can bring to the
Right.
cafe, right? But
Right.
doing it scientifically, analyzing the economic, situation of the employees, right? What's the average salary bracket? What kind of employees?
Ah,
How much is
yeah.
their daily spend ability? Then what's the local cuisine? What employees want to see in their cafeteria? What food do they enjoy? Doing it scientifically, doing it through research, finding out the right set, and being able to help the client find the right set of food partners to be deployed at the cafeteria premise. So these are the four gaps that we noticed, and we work to excel and solve for these four things
Hmm.
and do it the best that it has ever been. Right. So to break the four down, just to elaborate on the technology part, it started with just, a lot of people say HungerBox, yeah, it's a ordering app, right?
Yeah.
But that's like one of the 18 components that go into building the HungerBox, cafeteria
Nice.
suite, right? So that's the consumer facing one. The consumer can, order on an app or a progressive web app or a self ordering kiosk and things like that, right? But
Right.
that's where the journey starts. Right? We have built a lot of expertise on the POS and the software that sits with the food partners. Right? So we saw that traditional POS machines are not
Mhm.
good for cafe operations. They might be good
Mm.
for restaurant operations or a hotel operations, but they are not good for cafeteria operations, right? Which are
Mm.
high throughput, quick. You have a set lunch break, and then you want to quickly grab some
Yeah.
bites and move. So you need a very different software to be able to do that, right? So
It's
we
it's
build.
always rush hour for them. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely, and you
Yeah.
have to optimize and get the best buck out of those 1.5 hour window that
Yeah.
you get for food, right? So we build, the it's the world's best cafeteria POS system, right? Which is
Wow.
totally designed for cafeteria operations, right? Third, we looked at every operation in the cafeteria, right? Food is prepared. The food preparation starts at 2 a.m. to feed you at 1
Yeah.
p.m.
Twelve
in
thirty
the
one. Yeah.
afternoon. The preparation starts at 2 a.m. Right. So how do we digitally track it? Right. The food is prepared. The right quantity has been prepared. It is loaded. The right temperature was kept when it was loaded in the food trucks on the camera boxes. It arrived at the right temperature. A temperature test to record and
Wow.
authenticate that it came with the right temperature. Then it's loaded into Bain Marys and served, right? And each and every step is digitally recorded. Right? So we build a
Wow.
supervisor app for the staff who would have to record each and every phase, right? So that there is a digital record kept of everything that's happening on the food front, right? And then it is now loaded on the Bain Marys, ready to be served to employees, and then the other tech
Mm. Mm.
platforms come in, managing the entire payments, right? Whether it's employee paid, whether it is company paid, whether
Correct.
it is employee and company subsidized model, etc., etc., etc. Some companies want to give free tea and coffee, right? Some
Correct.
want to give a free breakfast if you come before 9 a.m., right? So enabling
Wow.
all those kind of features and all that, right? To be able to customize this for each and every client, based on their HR policies around FFP. Right. A lot of this goes into building the platform. Right. So it's a very config-driven architecture. Right. And thankfully, we had the vision of doing so from the first day we built it. Right.
Right.
We said that for every client it will be different. It's although it's the same HungerBox app, but it works completely different for each and every of our 180 client locations. Right?
Wow.
Yeah. So we were able to build that from day one. so that there is no rework required later on.
Wow, that's, and obviously from a tech standpoint, that is very, very impressive. You've pretty much thought through each process, right? And you said let's digitize every process that there is, which also meant that each team you were working with had to also be ready to move to that sort of a process. I mean, it's hard from
Absolutely.
a from zero tech, or what you said was they were using a POS which was, generic or not really optimized for them, to a so fine tuned, optimized, multi stage tech process. I'm sure there was a lot of operational angle every time you onboard someone. I'm guessing there's this large amount of operational training and whatnot involved. How
Absolutely. So
difficult or hard is that?
50% is about, building the platform, right? The
Right.
other 50% is, as you rightly said, getting it implemented, right?
Right.
Although it's a change in the right direction, and that
Correct.
everyone will benefit from it, right? Like any digitization has, right?
Correct.
My bank sits on my app today, right? And I don't have
Correct.
to go to the branch, right? But the first time I
Correct.
used it, I was all at sea, right? That ये कैसे
Yeah.
होता है, मेरे पैसे कहाँ गए, that kind of.
Right.
It's the same thing, it's being done for the right reason, but all stakeholders are worried because they have been
Mm.
consuming office food in a particular way for decades together. And
Yeah.
then some startup company comes and tells that, hey guys, I'm going to change the way you're going to have your office food, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't go down well with a lot of people, right? So managing each and every person, conducting multiple rounds of trainings with food partners, their staff, on a Saturday and a Sunday, to onboard them, to you know to gamify the
Mm.
experience for them so that they are all brought into the ecosystem, to get the administrative staff and everyone in the company hooked on, to setting up help desk to assist the 10% people who are struggling to get themselves
Yeah.
onboarded, etc.
Yeah.
Right? But the overall ecosystem has been of great help to us, right? Demonetization really helped us. Even
Correct.
pandemic helped the rest of the last 10% people to digitize, right?
Right.
So obviously, the ecosystem really helps. But yes, it is that each and every cafe we launch has to be handheld and ensured that
Sure.
we are able to move them digitally, right? but
So,
but fortunately it's a one-way street, right?
right.
So
Once
if
it's
you have
moved, it's
digitized,
done.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, you will never go back to your bank branch, right? Or you will
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
go to the movie theater to cut a ticket anymore, right? Once you are digitized forever, right? And that's brings in that stickiness and all that, right? So
No, perfect. And that brings me to the question around, obviously, then now that you've thought this so much through, there's so clearly well understood benefits on both the consumer side and the merchant side. How have you imagined that's the business model? Like, have you gone the traditional, let's say, technology provider SaaS sort of a route, or is there something innovative, or which is more accepted by the ecosystem that you've seen work for you there? Could you talk to us about that?
true. In terms of business model, our commercials are two pronged, right? One is we charge SaaS fee from clients, right?
Right.
And that, it was around 14% pre-pandemic, grew to
Mhm.
about 44%, right?
Wow.
During pandemic. So we became a very SaaS company, right? Because the daily transactions came up, right?
Right.
The other model is that we charge commissions from the food partners of the total food sale that happens through the platform. Right?
Right.
So these are the two monetization methods that we have. A combination of the two in a 60/40, 70/30 ratio is what is there. Right?
And these sort of work out in spite of, let's say, the uh, I would assume, the sort of thin margins that cafeterias typically operate on, because it's so subsidized, right? I mean, I'm again, the restaurant industry, not which obviously you've interacted with before, itself has struggles with margin, and I know the biggies in the company, in the ecosystem anyway, struggle with average order value and contribution margin and whatnot. So How do you see that as a going on challenge as a business model? Do you think it'll always stay like
Yeah,
this?
no, no. So I'll tell you, one of the greatest findings we had after having gone live, right?
Hmm.
And the biggest benefit we brought to the entire ecosystem was that before us, and this I can substantiate with now data of digitizing 650 of the largest cafeterias in the country, right?
Right.
There was pilferage of 18 to 22%, right,
Wow.
prevalent in the industry. So 18 to 22% of all food sale would not get recorded, right? Some cashier sitting there would would go
Sure.
into his pocket. So
Sure.
the food partner, the owner would suffer, the employees would suffer. There would be more water added to your pineapple juice, right? That's the outcome, right? So,
Yeah.
so what we were able to achieve through digitization was to bring on record this 18 to 22%
Wow. Yeah.
of complete drain of revenues that was happening in the industry, right? The
Wow.
second bit was around reducing manpower. So before us, each and every order would be collected by an individual, right? He would sit
Yeah.
sequentially, collect the order, discuss with you, and then collect and punch your order, and you know do a cash transaction where you give
Right.
money, he gives you
Right.
change. So this entire process was removed, right? Now I'm
Correct.
ordering on the app. I'm spending maybe 10 minutes discussing with my friends, but I'm doing it concurrently with 999 other people also doing the same,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then I'm deciding what I want to eat and then paying for that food digitally, right? Using any digital payment method
Yeah.
that I want, and completing the entire process there, right? So so that reduces a full cashier cost,
Of course.
right, at the premises. So typically a counter is operated by 4 to 5 people. So if you are able to reduce one manpower and the most expensive manpower at that, so you have a 25% saving in manpower cost. Okay. Third thing we did was that counters were all over, right? So before
Hmm.
us, the food partner would just go and do his own business development, right? So using some
Yeah.
of his connects, he would have one counter in Manyata Tech Park and one in EcoSpace, right? And serve
Hmm.
the two. His food truck would travel the two places, and it would be very inefficient. With our kind of platform, we were able to give him two counters in maybe EcoSpace and take away his Manyata counter, right? So his one food truck can now just go to EcoSpace and serve two counters there, right? So we were able
Nice.
to geographically realign the entire industry, right?
Wow.
Making it more efficient. So like that, again, we worked on food wastage, brought that percentage down, through analytics and reports and all that. So at multiple touch points, whatever the industry needed, we were able to pick up and address and solve for, right? And hence, the food partners did not mind,
Hmm.
giving the commissions to us because they saw long term benefit in
Of
this, right?
course.
They saw that they can scale their business with us, right? With digital ordering, he doesn't need to sit himself in the cash counter
Right.
to stop pilferage. Right? It is automatically stopped if everything is happening digitally. Right? So now he can then have another counter or get a third counter, right? Because
Absolutely.
yeah, so scalability improves and all that gets addressed. So if you are bringing in real value to the industry, right? Nobody has an issue, paying, what's justifiably yours, right?
Of course.
It's only when you are not adding value, but adding just another cost item to the industry when there is resistance, right? And hence the first cafeteria we digitized in 2016 is a cafeteria we still run, right, with the same set of food
Wow.
partners, right?
Nice.
So goes on to say that the model does work for all the stakeholders involved in the process.
Wonderful. It makes my last question very interesting because now I'm thinking, where do you go from here? I mean, you've personally been in the industry so long. You clearly there's well articulated value for HungerBox and the offerings that you have. Obviously, I'm sure there's more refinement of the product you're thinking about, and like automation and whatnot. But what's your vision like in the next 6 to 18 months, as VCs would ask, or what's your outlook on both the market as well as your own, that's roadmap? How are you looking at things?
No, so our journey is broken in three halves, right? One was the absolute stellar growth that we had from 2016 to 2020, right?
Hmm.
Absolutely everything going our way, and so much so that I was worried that is it that
Right.
easy to build a company, right? But then 2020, 2021 were the toughest years for us. It was the most toughest professional assignment ever, right? To see
Of course.
95% of your business wiped off in matter of few days, right? And being just a 4-year-old company at that point of time, and to survive through not one but three waves and 2 years, and with no visibility of when this will
Yeah.
actually end, was absolutely the toughest professional assignment we had to undergo, right? And it was the ultimate test of resilience, of belief, of sheer ability
Hmm.
to fight adversities, right?
Yeah.
That we underwent, right? And that completely transformed the company, right? So whoever is there today is mentally much more stronger as a team than we were pre-pandemic. But now we
Nice.
see the next phase. We see absolute stellar growth ahead for our company, right? We are clear market leaders, further consolidated our position there. Uh, we are no more just doing corporate. Now, education, healthcare, these sectors are now getting us more accounts than corporate, right? So,
Wow.
so
Okay.
sectorial breakouts have happened, and we have done a fabulous job in getting our unit economics corrected. So now we are completely profitable. So for the in the last 6 months, 4 months, we have been EBITDA positive as a company,
Wow.
right? With
Congratulations.
just about 30-35% people back to offices, right?
Yeah.
So that's the amount of work that has gone. So we see absolute stellar growth ahead of us for the next 3 years. And our vision is that, this is a country of 1.3 billion people eating food, but there are a handful of listed food companies, right,
Hmm.
that are there in our country. And that too, most are MNCs, right?
Yeah.
Hardly
Yeah.
Indian homegrown companies that have gone ahead and listed. We want to be one of those companies that is able to go and list with sound business, EBITDA profitability, etc., having answered all questions around the business,
Of course.
to go
Of
and,
course.
and list ourselves. That's our vision for the next 2 to 3 years.
Wonderful. Sandipan, thank you so much for this very, very enlightening chat. I mean, I'm sure I could keep going, given that you have personally so much experience in the industry, and it's so interesting to see that there's still a lot left to do. Uh, for people who are listening in, what's the best place to sort of reach you? Do you want to share, where you would prefer if someone wants to reach out to you?
Yeah, I'm there on LinkedIn, on Twitter, everywhere. So you can just Google Sandipan Mitra, and you should be able to find me.
Awesome, awesome. And of course, given that the company is growing, I'm sure people might be even interested in, understanding more about the business. So I will put the details there for everyone else to, find you and find out more about HungerBox. And for everyone listening to the show, of course, if you liked the conversation here today with Sandipan, please share it with a friend. Tell people about what you heard today. Give us feedback on our Twitter handles, on our Instagram, wherever you are accessible, and we'll be here to talk to you. Sandipan, thank you once again. This was a wonderful conversation, and again, all the best for everything to come for you and the entire team. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Pleasure being here, and love the interaction.